Good afternoon. This is the May 6th meeting of the Ways and Means Subcommittee, meeting of the City Council. We have 4 items on the agenda. We'll take them in order. And before we do, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Roll call of the Ways and Means Subcommittee members. Councilor Janino is absent. Councilor Morabito?
Here.
Here. Councilor Patch is absent. Councilor Zambuto is absent. Councilor Guanasso?
Here.
Here. And Chairman Rizzo?
Here.
Here. Quorum is present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The first item is a motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, and it asks that the city investigate the feasibility of providing an owner-occupied tax incentive for first responders. I don't see Councilor Rotundo here, so I'm thinking what I might want to do is carry this over to the next Ways and Means Subcommittee meeting so he can explain any prior statutes that he may have looked at or information he has pertaining to the success of a program like this. So why don't we carry this over until Councilor Rotundo is here and we can discuss it in further detail there. Any objections by the members? Okay, second item on the calendar is based on a motion by Councilor Morabito that the mayor be requested to establish a fund which allows 30% of revenue from any short-term rental local tax to go towards affordable housing assistance subject to the approval of the City Council. Councilor Morabito?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this motion was brought to Ways and Means. This goes hand in hand with the motion that we passed to put a tax levy on short-term rentals. And the reason this goes hand in hand, I think one of the stipulations was for us to charge a tax levy, we would have to put 30% of that toward affordable housing and create a fund. So I think it was brought to this committee so we could discuss and elaborate on some of the ways we could use it.
Okay. So this would consist of, I would imagine, establishing a line item which would be able to hold these funds and then in turn be used as a subsidy or maybe to invest in affordable housing. I'm not sure exactly how those funds would be used. Do you have anything that you can add as far as if 30% of this would go toward affordable housing? The City Council would have discretion. I'm just curious, you know, do we have any other, you know, cities and towns that have some language that maybe we can look at or?
So there are cities, I believe we currently have some assistant programs. So in order for us to charge the 3% on short-term rentals, we would have to put a certain percentage toward affordable housing. So I was thinking we could add it to our existing programs. For instance, if someone is below the median income and is looking, and they're a first-time home buyer and they're looking for assistance, that would be an avenue we could go down. We could put money toward that. Rental assistance as well. Okay. So these are some of the affordable housing assistance that neighboring cities have.
Okay, any comments or questions from
Mr. Chairman, if I would, how do we assess this in terms of, say there's 50 applicants that qualify for this, how do we make a determination as to how this is distributed evenly and within the provisions of what we're saying? This is a very blanket 30%, and how do we make assessment on that? And are we going to do it on an annual basis? Say some years we don't have anybody that qualifies for that. Do we roll it over? How are we handling the mechanisms of the 30%?
So through you, Mr. Chairman. So currently it's based on median income. You have to be 30% below median income. Also, some cities do a lottery just to make it fair. But any funds that are not used up, we could basically put it, have it carry over. Obviously, it would have to go through the City Council.
I'm not sure we can carry over. That's the problem. Do we have the leverage to carry over into an account?
Yeah, we don't. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rich Viscay, City Auditor. I'm not aware of any specific law that allows for what the council is asking to do. Most revenues are typically general fund revenues. They go to the bottom line of the general fund. If there's a particular type of revolving fund, a departmental revolving fund, that would be something that would have to be brought before the council. You'd have to identify a source of funds and a use of funds, and then we could account for it as such. But as it stands right now, I don't believe there's any particular law that allows for what you're speaking of. There are some, the Municipal Modification Act did allow for some dedication of recurring revenues to go into funds, but again, those are typically set up through a special revenue account through the council. So just to clarify that, I don't believe there's anything right now that just allows for the creation of that.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Viscay. I kind of was going down that road myself in my thought process pertaining to this. It's a worthy goal, but my thought as I looked at it and as we started to discuss it would be, how do we make that a reality? You know, there's got to be a tool on how to get there. We just can't blanket say, let's take 30%, put it over here, and let's help X number of people. I don't know whether it would, I don't know if it would require a special act or special home rule legislation, or, you know, whatever, to actually be able to create a fund for that. I do know that up in economic development, we do have programs for first-time home buyers and things like that, but this seems more of a specific purpose, you know, and we'd probably need to see more language on that, or figure out exactly, if, as I say, if there's something that other cities and towns are doing based on using revenues from short-term rentals that go, if there is something specific that we can look at. I know I'd be interested in it, and if you haven't heard anything about it, I'm sure you'd be interested in seeing it, but I just don't know where to go with this.
Yeah, if there's a template or some special legislation, you know, that we can, look at it and adopt. Otherwise, you always have the ability to set up an appropriation through the budget process in any department. So, you know, if that money goes to the general fund, we appropriate money for all the departments during the budget season. So that might be something you work with the administration and just ask for maybe planning to have an appropriation through the regular budget process for such a program. So there are ways to do it, but I just don't want you to get too far ahead of yourself to dedicate a revenue stream into a use that doesn't have a law that applies to such. So.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to get the exact language, but I don't want to say anything that's not correct.
Okay, it seems like the clerk has found some language that has allotted for this particular proposal, so she's looking that up right now. But as I say, once we have that language, it would make it a lot easier to say, let's take 30% of whatever fees are generated, but until
Mr.
we know
Chairman,
exactly.
I believe, until she gets clarification on it, but what my belief is, from what I read, that the 3% that the city council has already passed on short-term rentals, we imposed a 3% tax levy. Of that 3%, I believe the state law states that we can take 30% of that 3% and establish a fund, but it has to be toward affordable housing. But we can move on to the next subject, and when the clerk if she has some clarification, maybe she can speak about it, and we can resume later on.
It's fine by me. So for now, what we'll do is we'll lay on the table, and we'll move on to calendar item number 3. This is a communication from the mayor relative to business personal property exemptions. I don't know if all of you had a chance to look at the proposal. essentially, it was giving everybody that had, I believe, under $10,000 of personal property, a discount. I think it totaled amongst the entire business proposal. I don't have, do you have the information on the, okay, because I didn't have it in my package.
Yeah, Dana
so
Bragiforti, Chairman of the Board of Assessors. So essentially, kind of what you said in a nutshell, any personal property business that has a value of $10,000 or less would be exempted. So what that comes out to be, it's approximately 534 personal property accounts, and the total tax liability is about $38,500. So that's what it would be.
So 38,000 spread over
Spread over the
540
500.
businesses?
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
So, I mean, yeah, you know, it's a pretty minuscule amount in the big scheme of things, so it really wouldn't affect anything on the tax rate or anything like that. But administratively, it would kind of help expedite, you know, processing the bills.
Well, it's less, it's 580
Right,
less
exactly.
bills you've
So
got to send out,
less bills
right?
the collectors have to collect, and administratively, obviously helps us out a little bit. And of course, it helps out the small business owners as well.
Sure. I don't have any problem with that. Are there any councilors wishing to be heard? Council Guanasso?
Mr. Chairman, I was on the other side of the fence with the local business, and it certainly would help out because, you know, that comes in, it's a little bit of paperwork that was relegated over to me to do, and again, it's $38,000, 534 businesses. I think it's the fair thing to do, and in the long and short of it, we'll probably save the money in salaries and wages and effort. More importantly, effort, because they're going to be in place already working, but
Right,
the effort will be
exactly,
directed
yeah. So
in
we
a more
already have
needed
that.
area.
Right, we already have that, you know, accounting for it. And then, like you said, when we send out the form of list to a lot of these small businesses, it's kind of a headache for them to even figure out what to do with them.
Yeah, some
let
didn't know
alone
what to do with it. I did
return them.
because I've experienced it for so many years, but
Sure.
even the postage alone we save on that. And so I think it's beneficial to our community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, I was a businessman for many years, and one of the things that aggravated me the most was this foolish little personal property tax bill. They'd come and count your calculators, you know, and computers, and just foolish and a real, just a nuisance. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a lot of money for the business, but just a nuisance. And it's kind of like the state. God forbid you had a bad year and you're a corporation. Well, the state still wants you to pay them $450, even if you had a loss that year. And these are the kind of things that, you know, make you want to pull your hair out as a small businessman. So anything we can do for, especially our small businesses, is this is a great idea to get rid of this thing, and I support it 100%.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank
You know, one of the things, it doesn't look like any of the councilors, you know, wish to be heard, but, I mean, as a small business owner myself, as a business owner myself, you know, it's very easy, and I think Councilor Guanasso had alluded to it. You get so many things, that's very easy to be put aside and not looked at, and then you find it 6 months later, and now what do you have? You got a penalty on top of that. So, you know, it really, for the small, for the business owners that have under $10,000 in personal property,
Right.
you know, it seems to me that this would make, that this would make sense. It's just, and, you know, you add in the manpower, the postage, the time and effort put into it.
Right.
It doesn't. So if there's no objections, we'll go to a roll call and try to report this out favorably. Madam Clerk?
Sure. Roll call for the business personal property tax exemption. Councilor Janino is absent. Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch is absent. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. And Chairman Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes, this will be forwarded to the full city council with a favorable recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Calendar number 4 was a communication from the mayor relative to initiatives in support of revered veterans. This is another tax exemption. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at it. There's a few different provisions. Rather than read through them, if there's any questions pertaining to any of them, I believe that we're able to ask those questions now. So Does anybody have any questions pertaining to the provisions in the veteran exemption proposal?
Mr. Chairman, I think the city council has already voted this, voted on that.
So on the first one, which is the Gold Star parent exemption, essentially, so that, just to give you a little info on that, there's currently two surviving family members that would be the benefactor of that exemption, and that would total about $11,000 in tax in between the two tax bills. So, obviously, we want to take care of our veterans and Gold Star parents who lost a child through battle, so I think that's a small amount to give up, to give a benefit for those two individuals. As Council Morabito is alluding to, which is the Veteran Workout Program, through my confusion, that already was adopted through the City Council. So what needs to happen on that is to basically set up some rules and guidelines and ordinances for that. And what we're looking to do is to run that parallel to the Senior Workout Program, where we would allow 50 individuals to apply, hold a lottery if there's more than 50 individuals. It's a $750 real estate tax reduction. And obviously that equates to $37,500 cost to the city. So again, that was adopted, but I guess we would be looking to establish some ordinances on that, and perhaps Mark could lend some more on that as to what they'd be looking to do.
Well, just so I'm clear, so the city council has already voted for this.
Has already voted for that, yeah.
So then we're not going to be creating
so you
language,
don't
we're
have
going to
to.
wait here
Right,
back,
right,
correct?
exactly,
Okay.
Yeah.
And,
So really the only one you're doing is the first one, which is the surviving family exemption.
okay,
Chapter 59, Section 5, 22H.
so the surviving family exemption is really what we'd be voting on.
Yeah.
This veteran parking space.
That was already voted out,
That was voted out also?
council as a whole, yeah, they already voted
Okay.
that out.
All right. So
Mr.
we're really,
Chairman,
we're talking about the, Councilor Zambudo?
yeah, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer that we vote for the Gold Star families.
Of course.
I mean, I don't think there's any discussion needed.
Right. I totally agree. I mean, unless anybody has any objection, we're talking about two Gold Star
Yeah.
families, that, I don't even think that requires discussion. So, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll on that so we can report that out favorably as well. This would be Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22H.
On the surviving family exemption, Counselor Janino is absent. Counselor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Patch is absent. Counselor Zambudo?
Yes,
Yes. Counselor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes, and Chairman Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes, this will be forwarded to the full city council with a favorable recommendation.
Okay, and before we conclude the meeting, did we find anything else out on the fund which would allow 30% of revenues from any short-term rentals?
The new regulation that was posted by Massachusetts, it's honestly very long, and I haven't read it thoroughly. It's something the city solicitor is actually looking at in crafting the short-term rental ordinance, and I think this is part of that ordinance would be this, yeah.
Then the way I think we should do is keep that in committee. Once we have more specifics on it and we have something tangible to vote on, then we can do that at that point. Okay?
I was just going to say, I'm happy to check with the Department of Revenue, see if there's any IGRs or anything that have come forward with regard to that, and report back as well. So it's new to me, so I apologize if I missed a law, but
No, this is all new, so,
Okay.
we're just trying to catch up. These short-term rentals overall are new, so, in the big scheme of things for cities and towns to be tackling, so,
Yeah.
so we'll all do our due diligence, and we'll lay this on the table for a future Ways and Means Committee, subcommittee meeting.
okay, great.
Okay? If there's no further business, which I don't believe there is, I want to thank the members here for their attendance, and this will conclude our May 6th meeting of the Ways and Means Subcommittee.